Got 3? All right, perfect. Oh, okay. Just a reminder, we're a little shy on councillors in chambers, so those who are online, please keep your cameras on as much as you can here. I'm going to call the public hearing of Tuesday, November 26, 2024 to order. This meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means. As such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. For council members participating by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for purposes of confirming quorum. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess until the connection is restored. Council members lose connection during the voting process. Staff will get you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. The contact information has been circulated to you. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be posted on X at Van City Clerk. Just a reminder, in case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in this chamber. Please use the stairs, do not use the elevator. If you require accessibility assistance, please remain in your location and wait for security staff to guide you to the safe location. I also like to highlight there is a defibrillator located at the very end of the hallway outside the council chamber. I also like to take a moment to recognize all the great work that city staff are doing behind the scenes to make sure that we can be here tonight. City Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Acting Mayor Montague in the chair. Mayor Sim is on leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kirby Young.
Roll call.
Not here. Councillor Dominato is on a leave of absence for medical leave. Councillor Bly, leave of absence for civic business. Councillor Boyle is on leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Fry. Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner.
Present.
Councillor Joe.
Present.
You have quorum, Acting Mayor Montague.
Great, thank you. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and if they are a Vancouver resident. Those speaking on behalf of 4 or more persons or groups, including the speaker, will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented confirm by introducing themselves online or in person. Those who are represented by another speaker must not be individual speakers themselves. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on X at Van City Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online Mayor and Council public hearing feedback web form. This link will also be provided on X. Also want to note City's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council when they are addressing speakers and staff, they will avoid using gender honorifics and instead refer the person by first and last name or role or title. A reminder that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means Council is to only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1, approve the application in principle, 2, refuse the application, or 3, refer the application to staff for further consideration. Finally, if Council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting on Thursday, November 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Okay, so the first report, council delegation of authority to approve form of development. And before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Sorry, just. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Seeing no one on the queue, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability to amend Section 3 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw for Council to delegate the authority to approve the form of development. The provision is intended to streamline the permitting process by allowing the form of development to be reviewed and approved by the Director of Planning. The following correspondence has been received since we referred to public hearing: 2 pieces in support, 6 pieces in opposition, and this represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be posted at X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. This item has speakers registered, so we will proceed with a staff presentation. We need your mic here, I think.
Hello, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is Leisha Desjardins, planner with Policy, Regulations and Process, branch within Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability. We are bringing to you a proposed change to how a form of development is approved. This proposal originates from the Director of Planning. It requires a public hearing as it would amend the Zoning and Development Bylaw under Authorities, Section 3. But first, some background. On April 25th this year, the provincial government enacted Bill 18, Vancouver Charter Amendment Act. This legislation amends the Vancouver Charter to better align with the rules and authorities governing other BC municipalities under the Local Government Act. Pertaining to tonight's presentation, Bill 18 authorizes Council to delegate the authority to approve the form of development, the FOD. Form of development is used as a regulatory term referring to the physical design of any proposed development as approved by Council. This includes height, density, massing, setback, tower floor plate sizes, and other regulations. This regulatory tool promotes high-quality architecture, good public realm interface, neighborhood fit, quality on-site amenities, and more, and it shapes Vancouver's unique skyline. For CD1 rezonings, the form of development is regulated through the bylaw and conditions of approval. The Vancouver Charter requires Council to approve zoning changes and the form of development. This means every CD1 district schedule, which is unique zoning, must also have its form of development approved by Council. Council first approves, in principle, a CD1 rezoning with conditions included in the form of development. Later, when conditions have been met and the development permit is ready to be issued, the project must return to Council as an administrative motion. As the name suggests, this motion is administrative only, and it is regular practice for Council to approve these on consent. This motion is prepared by staff and is accompanied by a memo to provide additional context should Council want to know more about the project. City staff spend about a day or 3 to 6 hours preparing the motion and memo. This is administrative work and it takes time away from other essential work. It also takes up time and space on Council agendas. The development permit cannot be issued until the motion is approved by Council. Bill 18 has amended the Vancouver Charter to allow Council to delegate their authority to approve the form of development for CD1 rezonings. This report proposes that Council delegates this approving authority to the Director of Planning. The Director of Planning is already an approving authority for many kinds of variances and discretion and approves most development permits. This new approval process would fold into regular and established review and sign-off processes at the staff level. There would be no changes to conditions from the original Council-approved rezoning. We are proposing this practice be effective January 1st for development permits that come from CD1 rezonings.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Oh, sorry.
Actually, sorry, there's one more part to the presentation. Sorry, this conclusion slide. To recap, staff proposed council delegates the form of development approval to the Director of Planning, and doing so would remove the form of development as an administrative motion from council agendas. This change is expected to improve permitting time, and it would minimize administrative steps that are time-consuming for staff. It would also reduce items from council agendas and help shorten meetings. And it would also improve certainty for applicants and allow staff to set a more precise timeline for permit issuance. Overall, these changes would further streamline our permitting system and set a more precise timeline, enabling timely delivery of housing, jobs, and amenities. And thank you for your time, and we're available to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from council to staff? I see Councillor Klassen. ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just a couple of questions. Thank you very much, staff, for the presentation. I guess kind of two real questions. One is, given that this is already rolled out in other municipalities, have we received any feedback from other local governments as to potential response or impacts of removing the FOD from a council decision making? And I guess the second question just would be, and I think it's indicated, but I want to just make sure that it's stated publicly, there still remains opportunities for council to respond, if necessary, to questions around the form of development.
Yeah, to answer your first question, we did not consult with other municipalities since it is a practice that we would be consulting them on a possibility of a different practice. And we are currently doing this at the council level, which is something they don't do. So currently this is an internal staff process in other municipalities. So it's kind of like asking for a negative. Regarding your second question, sorry, what was your second question?
Oh, sorry, the second question was just about avenues for council,
Right.
Should there be some questions around the form of development.
Of course, so there's lots of opportunities for feedback about form of development that could occur at the rezoning application stage. Quite often there's a comment form on the application, there's a site sign describing the project, showing renderings. There's an opportunity to sign up at a public hearing and speak to the project. And then at the development permit application, there's a similar mirrored process where there's usually a site sign, often a postcard notification, an opportunity for comments. And there's generally 4 or 5 opportunities where you could submit comments in various ways throughout the process.
And for council directly, if they are wanting to just, again, ask a couple of questions or make an inquiry about this, at what stage is that possible?
The ideal stage to participate and have input on the form of development would be as early as possible at the rezoning stage. At the public hearing level. If you want to speak to council about form of development, that would be at public hearing.
Excellent. All right. Thanks very much. That's my question, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Klassen. Seeing no other questions, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers, please come forward to the podium for the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we will now hear from the public. First speaker is Emily Boston. Okay. Apparently speaker 1 has withdrawn. Speaker 2 has withdrawn. So we'll go to speaker 3, Gurpreet Prewal.
Yes, sir. My name is Gurpreet Purewal. I'm the owner of Voltas Engineering. We do engineering for many projects for City of Vancouver and other provinces through the province in other municipalities also. Is there a process or maybe a block diagram or a portal where you have a sequence in what form does a client follows, and everything is based in the sequence order. So once he has finished one sequence, he can go to the second one and third, so forth on. And also, he or she will know at what stage is his project is there. That's my question to the staff.
Okay, we can't answer questions, but I'm sure council has noted, and that might be followed up with staff later.
Okay. The other thing I want to speak is regarding Fortis BC. Is that there's another way of speaking, or is it going to be later on where we can speak about the allowing Fortis BC to allow them to use fuel?
Yeah, that's for tomorrow. If you're on the speakers list, that's been moved to tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. So then I would like to speak for tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445 # for the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in council chambers, please come forward to the podium. I don't see any, so we will take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. Sure, if we can get council members online to turn your cameras back on. More? There we go. Okay. Clerk, any other callers?
We have no additional callers on the line.
Okay, and any other correspondence at all?
No.
Okay, seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed, and seeing that there are little or no public comments received after 5 p.m. today, I'm now also closing receipt of public comments. Does staff have any closing comments? Okay. Does council have any questions for staff? Seeing no one on the queue, council will now make its decision on the application. Do we have a mover for a recommendation? Moved by Councillor Fry, seconded by Councillor
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Kirby-Young. Is there any debate? Seeing no one on the queue. Clerk, I guess we'll take us to a voting panel.
Clerk, it's Councillor Zhou here. Can I have a vote assist in favor, please?
Okay, Councillor Zhou, is vote assist for you? No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's everybody, and that passes unanimously with all those present. Okay, we'll move on to our second item. Wait to swap out any staff if we need to. CD1 rezoning 1068 and 1090, sorry, 1068 to 1090 Burnaby Street and 1318 Thurlow Street. And before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Seeing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Anthem Christ Point Limited Partnership to rezone 1068 to 1090 Burnaby Street and 1318 Thurlow Street from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 31-story residential building containing 300 rental units, with 20% of the residential floor area secured for below market rental. A floor space ratio of 12.63 and a height of 82 meters with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence we received since referred to public hearing: 19 pieces in support, 3 pieces in opposition, and 1 piece dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. So this will be the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445#. For the close of the speakers list, that phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. This item has speakers registered, so we will proceed with a staff presentation. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application.
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. My name is Chi Chan. I am the rezoning planner for this application in the West End. This site, shown in red, is located on the south side of Burnaby Street at the corner of Thurlow Street. The area is well served by parks, public transit, bike routes, childcare centers, and community facilities, including the Gordon Neighborhood House. The site is currently zoned RM5A and occupied by 3 three-story residential buildings. There are residential tenancies on site, and the city's tenant relocation and protection policy applies. The application includes the redevelopment of 1 historic residential house constructed in 1899. The redevelopment of the rental tower, together with a small lot size, preclude, however, the retention of this house on site. Instead, the applicant is actively pursuing opportunities to relocate it to another suitable location. This application is subject to the West End plan and the secured rental policy option. The West End plan guides change over 30 years in this neighborhood. It identifies villages, neighborhoods, and corridors, and locates growth and additional density along the perimeter of the West End in the Georgia and Burrard corridor, where this application is located. Under the secured rental policy option, proposals can be considered for 100% rental housing, in which a minimum of 20% of the residential floor area is secured as below market rental. This rezoning proposal is for a 31-story residential rental tower with a 32nd floor amenity area. The proposal contains 300 rental units, of which approximately 58 are for below market rental. An FSR of 12.63 and a tower height of 269 feet are proposed. This application was first submitted in December of 2022. However, a new applicant purchased the site and submitted a revised application in June of this year for an 80-20 market and below market rental housing building that is before you here tonight. The average starting rents are shown on this table, as well as the average annual household incomes they serve. Average starting rents for the below market units are to be discounted, with a portion at 20% and another portion at 50% below the CMHC market average rents for the West End. Based on recent data, rents for the below market units would range from $720 for a studio unit up to about $2,500 for a 3-bedroom. In comparison, average starting rents for the market units range from $1,900 to $4,400 for studios to 3-bedroom units. A Q&A period was hosted for 2 weeks for this application. The main themes of support and concern were expressed around the height, density, and rental housing. Respondents also expressed concern about the impacts of additional residents on the neighborhood's amenities. In response to the feedback regarding the height and design, the proposal's form generally aligns with the policy expectations for a building at this location. On the amount of housing, the affordability levels proposed align with the plan's requirements for this area. And finally, on neighborhood impacts, the West End neighborhood is surrounded by many residential amenities such as parks, transit, and bicycle routes. There are also plans for the renewal of existing community facilities, such as the West End Community Center and the Aquatic Center. The total public benefits for this project are valued at approximately $3.6 million. In conclusion, the proposal aligns with the planning policies and advances the city's mandate to deliver more rental housing in the West End. Staff recommends support for the application subject to the conditions of Appendix B in the report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance?
Good evening, Chair and Council. My name is Mark Capina from Anthem Properties. Thank you, staff, for the thorough presentation. We have nothing further to add at this point, but we are here tonight with members of the Anthem development team, our architect at BOP Architects, and our tenant relocation specialist, should you have any questions about the application.
Okay, great, thank you. Are there, on that note, are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant, and you do have questions. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. The first one is interested to know more about the potential relocation opportunities for the heritage home component. I am very familiar with the site, so I understand why it needs to be moved, but I'm just wondering if you're looking in Vancouver or working with groups like Renewal Homes that relocate properties to underserved Indigenous communities on waterways, or what type of strategies you're potentially pursuing there.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we've reached out to Renewal Developments as well as the Nickel Brothers. It is a complicated move. It's in a urban location and an older house, and so we're in the process of determining what options are available. We're still early days on that, but we've made contact with both of them, and they're checking viable opportunities and still need to get into the house to determine kind of feasibility of the actual move.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. I appreciate that. And then my second question is that you came into this process when acquiring the property, I believe, when the enactment or the entitlements had been given through public hearing previously. Oh, sorry, not through public hearing, but sorry, let me back up, Londe. You acquired the site. The previous applicant wasn't proceeding with it, but you're finding that it's viable to proceed on the site with market rental? Is it more due to, if I can ask, is it more due to individual developer capabilities versus broader economic conditions?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, and I think that's probably a pretty good summation of it. This site is delivering 20% below market units, but it's slightly unique in the zoning where 30% of the 20% is actually 50% off CMHC. So there are certainly some headwinds in the industry with rising costs and fees out there, but working with staff, we believe we've come up with a form of development that works with our pro forma requirements, and it's a viable project in our opinion.
Okay, and on that note, if I could just do one quick follow-up on that, because I did note that the rents are deeply discounted. We often find sometimes they're more than 20% because they're based on citywide averages, but as you said, 30% of the 20% are deeply affordable. So was it with respects to things like floor plate modifications, or what in the form of development made it feasible?
Yeah, so there's a bit of a longer story here, but we agreed on a slight increase to the floor plate, 10% increase, and based on that, the economics were viable for us.
Okay, that's interesting because we have lots of conversations about floor plates at council and other policies, so it's helpful to hear your direct experience. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. One to the applicant. You noted that you had your relocation specialist here. It's hard in the West End, so I just wanted to ask around the challenges that you perceive in offering some choices to tenants and in terms of relocating, especially in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so I believe Shaughnessy Luke is online, and I will hand it to her to speak to it.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. And it's a great one because, as we know, it's challenging in the market. But what I just want to start off by saying is that part of the role in working with tenants is starting the process quite early. So we identify who needs the most help early on in terms of those who potentially could qualify for non-market housing. And then we work with folks as they're ready to relocate. So, of course, we understand the tenant rights, and we know that they have the ability to stay on the property until the notice period. So really, it's not a one-size-fits-all. But I can tell you from this project, we've already had quite a bit of success, and most of the tenants who have relocated have stayed in the area. Notably, a tenant who's moving out in December is moving to a brand new building in the West End and is very happy with the location and where they'll be moving. Also, we had a tenant who qualified for non-market rent subsidized housing, and we were able to access housing for them actually just a kilometer away. So based on how we're doing thus far, I would say that folks are able to stay in the area, and because we've been working with them early on, we've been able to come up with the solutions.
That's good news. Thank you. Appreciate that information. I have another question for staff. And staff, I may have got it wrong. Thank you very much. I may have got it wrong, but I thought I heard you say that this would be affecting Gordon Neighborhood House, which is quite a few blocks away. Can you explain how it might be affecting Gordon Neighborhood House?
Thank you for the question. No, my intention was just to point out that Gordon Neighborhood House was in the proximity of amenities and services in the area. It does
Okay.
not affect, this application does not affect.
Yeah,
any
okay,
house.
maybe I misinterpreted that. Yeah, because I think it's 3 or 4 blocks away. But anyway, yes, you're right. It's a well-loved and well-used neighborhood house. So, okay, thanks. That's it for questions for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fry.
Thanks. I also had a question on the tenant relocation. So maybe this is a question for Shaughnessy, or maybe it's a question for the developer. And it's more a curiosity, because obviously this application, this site has come to us a couple of times. I remember in the last council it came to us and stuff. And how has are these the same tenants that have been there for a long time, or has there been a significant tenant turnover as a result of the various proposals? And
Yeah, and this will be maybe a hybrid answer, Shaughnessy. I'm going to start, and if you need to jump in. But so we contracted to buy the site kind of summer of 23 and closed on it this past summer. So we don't really have the history beyond that. I mean, we have the history in writing, but it's kind of what we were told. Your question about were the same tenants, the site was actually largely vacated back in 2017 when the initial application was done. Some tenants stayed. It was re-tenanted. Some of those new tenants actually qualify for tenant relocation rights. So we have a mix of existing tenants who have been there before 2017. We have new tenants who qualify for the TRP. And then we have some tenants who have moved in post-application who do not qualify. So it's quite a complex mix of tenants. And, we through Shaughnessy and Anthem Properties actually has an in-house team specifically who deal with this. So we're managing it very diligently.
And I appreciate that layered context, because of course 2017, I don't think we had a TRPP back in 2017.
There was, yes. There was, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not to the same extent that we do now.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I'll chime in as well. From Mark's response there. So, and on that note, it's important to know, because of the complexity of this project with the previous tenants and then the current tenants, the previous ones who were part of the 2017, several of them who were eligible are going to be offered the right of first refusal. So I think that's important to note that Anthem is extending that offer even though they were not involved in the project. So I came on board when Anthem took over the project, basically. So yeah, I can't really speak to what happened before 2023, but since then been actively involved with the tenants who are on site now, and all the tenants who have relocated thus far have been compensated. So that's also important to note.
Great, thanks, Shaughnessy. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Meisner, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I had a question around the Hobbs residence. I understand there's some efforts this is for the applicant, by the way, some efforts to relocate that home, which dates back to 1899. Just wondering if I get an update on those efforts.
Yeah, so we've made contact with both Renewal Developments and Nickel Brothers. They've been through the site. We're waiting for feedback in terms of options. I mean, there's a number of considerations in relocation. One, the donor site, the state of the current building, and then also access to kind of road network to move it. So we're in early discussions, but we're committed to working through all possibilities.
Okay, appreciate that update. I had another question to staff around that same issue. I noted in I believe it was in the referral report, that with the original rezoning from 2018, it was mentioned that this building, the Hobbs residence, would be a good candidate for addition to the Vancouver Heritage Registry, but it states that didn't materialize as that previous rezoning application was not completed. I'm just wondering, were there any efforts or consideration of an addition to the Heritage Registry with this current application?
Thank you for the question. We recognize that it was challenging to, given the site area, to try to save this particular home on this site. So what the conditions did talk about is we'll get a statement of significance and we'll have the applicant try to relocate it. The other thing about registering on the registry is that the owner has to agree to that, and they were just looking at it, and it wasn't something that they wished to pursue.
Okay. If the home was relocated to another site within Vancouver, and the owner wanted to pursue that, would that be possible if it's at a different location?
That is possible if it's in Vancouver. It requires the consent of both the homeowner and council to add anything to the registry.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay. Looks like it's it for questions. This is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Now, speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. We'll now hear from the public. Our first speaker is Kyle Randall. Kyle, are you on the phone? Hello, Kyle. Have we lost Kyle?
No, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle. You have up to 5 minutes.
Hey there, sorry. Just trying to clear some background noise here. Bear with me for 1 second.
Whenever you're
Okay,
ready.
sorry about that. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, hi, Mayor, and councillors. My name is Kyle Randall. I live in the West End, and I'm happy to call in to support the proposal in front of you today. Support the direction this council is taking as we plan and move ahead with expanding our rental housing capacity in the city in hopes to address the current demand issues and expected population growth. The West End is the densest local area in the city, and I believe that this is part of its appeal. It's a vibrant community with a number of great restaurants, bars, and cafes which stay in business thanks to people who live and work in the neighborhood. And I think that the proposed 300 new rental homes at this location will be an amazing addition to the area, which is set to be transformed with other ongoing and upcoming redevelopments. Recognizing that this neighborhood is home to many lower income residents and households, I also really appreciate that the plans for this development include 58 below market rentals, which are going to be ranging from 20 to 50% below market. And then as well, the last point I just want to make tonight is that I think that this is a really appropriate location for the high density housing. And that the majority of Vancouver's working population work downtown, including myself, or along the Broadway corridor. And I think that it simply makes a lot of sense to locate the housing close to these jobs where people can get to work by walking, on their bikes, or out of their cars. So thank you for the time this evening, and I hope you vote in favor of the application.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Our second speaker is Corey Colville. Corey, you on the line?
Hi, Mayor and Council. I'm on the line, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in favor of this project. I think that the project underwent about a decade of planning to get to this point, and the proposal is entirely consistent with the dozens of public consultation, open houses, and rezoning petitions, and so many steps and layers and layers and layers to finally get to this point. And I'm very enthusiastic to see that a developer, although it's the second time around here, wants to proceed with the project. I think that it's a wonderful proposal, and adding 300 new rental units to the West End will be a big help. There's a housing crisis, not a derelict shack crisis, and we need to get rid of these molding, barely livable boxes and replace them with things that can last for another 100 years. So I think we should, move to give the developer the option to build another 10 stories if they so choose, and proceed with approving this proposal tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Going to speaker number 3, Leslie Adams. Leslie, you're in chambers or on the phone? In chambers. Go ahead, you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. First off, I'd like to say that I'm very supportive of increased density and rentals throughout Vancouver, and I stress throughout Vancouver. I live in the immediate neighborhood, and I've got questions about the density of what's happening currently. Today, I'd like to just speak about that, the construction phases, and some of the longer-term biking and walking plans, if I can manage to get through. I'm going to try and drop some of it, given some of what I've heard. The tower itself may be fine, as I'm hearing from the previous 2 speakers. But I really question what the saturation density, which is what I call it, is in the immediate neighborhood. And I'm talking Burnaby and Harwood. I live on Harwood, and the buildings are on Thurlow itself. Some of you may be aware that when the construction started on Harwood, the street was completely closed off, as was the lane, but we've managed to get a pass through on that. And that was going to Thurlow, which I think is one of the safer streets for many of the residents to get to go east or west in the city. Rush hour and times Burrard can be, I'd say, a bit of a challenge. So I guess I'm hoping that the density can be looked at or re-looked at somewhat in its totality. In part of the report, it said, the referral report, the plan does not establish a density limit. My flags went up. I understand that relates to the Burrard Corridor density definitions, whatever, but I question how it actually fits with this particular block. I expect the train has largely left the station on this new tower that we're discussing, but I hope there can be some really thoughtful looking at the density and also looking at things during the construction phase. As I mentioned, I live on Harwood, and there are 2 towers right at the end that aren't even above the ground yet. And I think one of my concerns, and I couldn't really, in my skim of the referral report, see what sort of considerations are made for traffic during the construction phases. People here may have answers to me. But I think it's important to think about on a bunch of different levels. And last night I went out to pace out the distance between those 2 buildings and also the one that we're discussing tonight. And if I considered it in feet, I'd say it was probably 0 feet because they're right butt up against each other. Given our traffic considerations, with the lane, with Harwood, it seems logical to me that we may end up with another closed lane in some way. So it's how to get around that. Also, Burnaby Street is also now getting much busier. It's pretty jammed because of traffic diverting, not being able to go through Harwood, et cetera, at certain times of the day. It's not all the time. It also happens to be, I think, one of the prettiest streets, and I know 5 trees are protected, but hopefully more will be. Don't get me wrong, I love living downtown and I walk or bike to most of my shopping, theater, and other activities. But I think it's also fair for people to have pretty reasonable access with their cars. On biking, with the increased neighborhood volume and biking interest generally, I'm wondering how many injuries or deaths it's going to take to implement guidelines for motorized 2-wheelers and even signage. This is a broader city question, but it really relates to the southbound hill that leads onto the Burrard Street Bridge. I think it's just waiting for accidents to happen. You may not be at this stage exactly, but I think it's something that's very important to think about. It's also affecting vehicle traffic for some of the people in our building. We see rolling stop signs. I think we could see caution signs even at the top of the hill. I've biked in downtown Toronto and Vancouver for decades, and I can really say it's the most dangerous I've ever experienced due to the increased speed of the motorized wheelers and the very few guidelines for them, two-wheelers. And I felt that when the Pattison building
I'm
opened.
sorry, Leslie, we're at time.
Okay, I think I've got to most of it, and I think it would be great if you could relook at density and also really carefully look at the construction phase.
Thank you for your comments, Leslie. We're going to go on to our fourth speaker, Terry Smith. Terry, you on the phone?
I am.
Go ahead, you have up to 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Terry Smith, and I am speaking on behalf of the West End Business Improvement Association, which represents approximately 650 businesses and commercial property owners along Davie, Denman, and Robson Streets in Vancouver's West End. I am here to speak in support of the proposed rezoning application for 1068 to 1090 Burnaby Street and 1318 Thurlow Street by Anthem Properties. This project will help in addressing the acute rental housing shortage in Vancouver, particularly in the West End, and revitalizing our aging rental housing stock. The WEBIA was highly engaged in the development of the West End Community Plan and supportive of the overarching principles which aim to foster positive growth and a resilient economy in our neighborhood. As such, we do believe that Anthem Properties' proposal to deliver 300 purpose-built rental homes in the West End will make a positive impact. Specifically, 58 of these units will be designated as affordable, below-market rental housing, which is a significant increase from the original proposal of 24 units. And of these 58 units, 70% will be rented at below 20% of CMHC market rates, and 30% will be rented at below 50% of CMHC market rates. As well, it's important to note that 35% of the homes will be family-oriented with 2 or 3 bedroom units, which is crucial for supporting families in the West End. Additionally, the majority of the units are also larger than average, which is a result of the increased floor plate, providing more spacious homes for residents. This project is not just about adding housing, it's about contributing to the broader vitality of the West End. By increasing the supply of rental homes, it will support a local workforce and create more housing options for people who want to live near active transit, shops, and services. In addition to the housing component, Anthem Properties has committed to providing a one-zone transit pass for every unit for up to 3 years, installing a public bike share station at the corner of Thurlow and Burnaby, and providing 513 bike parking spaces, thus contributing to the encouragement of active transportation. Furthermore, the WEBIA also appreciates that Anthem Property owns and manages its properties, which demonstrates their long-term commitment to the community. This approach ensures a stable and well-managed development that will contribute to the ongoing prosperity of the West End. So in conclusion, we strongly support Anthem's application for the rezoning of 1068 to 1090 Burnaby Street and 1318 Thurlow Street. This proposal will not only provide critical market and below-market rental housing, but also contribute to the economic vitality of our neighborhood. We believe this development aligns with the goals of the West End Community Plan and will make a positive, lasting impact on our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks for calling in. We'll go to our fifth speaker, Nicole Germain. Nicole, are you on the phone?
Yes.
Hi,
Hello?
Nicole. Can you just, before you start,
Hi.
if you can just tell us if you're a resident of Vancouver or not, and then you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, I live right next door.
Okay, go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes.
Yes. I just listening to a few of the comments I already made. The lady who also lives in the neighborhood who's down the street from me, probably. Yeah, I have similar comments about traffic and about also I do want to point out the construction noise that happens 7 a.m. I think they start, and nowadays they're finished earlier, but in the summer we had exceptions from the city to build and construct during the day, during Saturdays. So you never really had a break. And many of us work from home now. So it's very distracting and very dirty with all the debris and the dust flying around. So yeah, there are 2 pits already that, like the lady said before me, they're not even yet coming off the ground, but the 2 cranes are huge and they are beautifully lit up for the holidays right now. But you know, the high winds that we had recently, they're really scary. My window faces the construction pit, so I'm very much aware. So another pit to add to that mix, it's going to cause a lot of congestions for sure, and it's very taxing for us living in the neighborhood. Having said that, I'm happy that there is at least 20%. So does that mean there's room for growth in terms of having below market rentals? And hopefully, I guess I don't understand I guess maybe I should read up on it, but I didn't get the percentages that are below 20% below or 30% below CHMHC guidelines. But in my opinion, they should all be. I mean, we need to read the room right now, and there is a housing crisis, big time. So I don't understand why the whole building, all of the 300 rental units, cannot be below market rental. And that is why I oppose.
Okay, thank you for calling in, Nicole. That's the end of our speakers list. So this will be the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445# for the close of the speakers list. Phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers, please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, we will take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. Okay. We're good. So we have one more caller that we're going to hear from. Caller number 6. You're just up in the gallery. Hi. Yeah. Just so you know, your voice is really project down here. So thank you.
Okay.
Greg Lagarigas, you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, my name's Greg. I actually live in 1318 Thurlow. I'm obviously opposing this this application. Just a couple things. As one of your guys said, these are moldy buildings that no one's living in and stuff like that. There's actually quite a few people that live in here. And also, I've lived in this building for well over 2 years now, and for some reason, I don't qualify for any relocation protection or help finding a new place, any money, or any guarantee of moving back into the building. So my question or what I'd like to say to the city is this: if you guys are going to go ahead and approve this, you should be offering these protections to all of the tenants, not just some of them. Because there's a lot of people that do live in these buildings that are not going to be able to move back to the neighborhood or have a place to live. So, yeah, that's basically all I got to say, but I am opposed to it.
Okay, thanks, Greg, for calling in. And Clerk, is that the last speaker?
I had a question for that speaker, Chair.
Oh. We can ask clarifying questions, right? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you're still there, Greg, we do have one question for you. Go ahead, Councillor Meisner.
Yeah. Hi, Greg. Councillor Meisner here. I'm just wondering if you could expand on what you were told as to why you wouldn't qualify for the tenant relocation.
Yeah, I was told that I had to live in the building for up to 2 years. It's 1 year in most circumstances, but then up to 2 years in special circumstances, which happens to be mine, for when the original application went in, and I had only lived in the building for about 8 months when the original one went in. But now this revised application, which has been revised, and it's been well over 2 years since the original application. So yeah, I've been told by many people that I do not qualify for any tenant relocation protection.
Okay, we're going to clarify that with staff. So thanks for staying on the line. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone can get in contact with me, or if there's anyone I can contact to talk about that more, that's kind of the reason I am calling in, because I do feel like, you know, if you guys are going to go ahead and develop the building, you should be able to give these protections to everyone that's living here. I've lived here since July 2022, so over 2 years.
Okay, thanks. If you stay and listen to the meeting tonight, I'll ask some questions of staff in a bit and hopefully get some more information for you.
And what was your name?
Peter, Councillor Meisner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. That's it for me.
Okay, and Clerk, was that our last caller?
Yes, there are no other callers.
Okay, so seeing there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there are little or no public comments received after 5 p.m. today, I'm also closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Oh, you're good? Okay. Does staff have any closing comments?
No closing comments. Thank you.
Okay. Does council have any questions for staff? And Councillor Meisner, I see you're on the list. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Just following up on that last caller, I would be interested in hearing from staff as to whether that tenant relocation policy would apply. I don't know all the particulars, but we did hear some more details from that last caller who indicated they've been living there for 2 years now and apparently have been told that it doesn't apply.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm going to pass that question over to our housing planner, Emily, and she is online.
Okay, thank you.
Burnaby is considered a primary rental building, and so 1068 Burnaby did have that 1 year tenancy length to be eligible, and then 1318 Thurlow, because it was previously a strata building, and for tenants that moved in after the property transfer date, those tenants are considered secondary rental tenants. So under the TRP policy, eligibility is for any tenants with a tenancy level.
Okay, sorry, you did cut off a little bit there at the beginning. You mentioned 1068 is a purpose-built rental. Is that what you said?
The length of 1 year or more.
Sorry, you just keep cutting out for me.
Maybe.
Sorry, if I may clarify, 1068 is a primary rental building. However, the speaker was referring to their residence in 1318 Thurlow, and that's a secondary rental building. It was a strata windup, and then the tenant moved in after the strata windup. But also the consideration that for secondary rental, our policy states that at the time of rezoning application, so on December 2023, this tenant had only been living there for a year and a half and did not qualify for under our TRP.
Okay, and just to clarify, if it's a strata wind-up, they need to have lived there for 2 years. Or is there no TRP? I'm just not clear. I need clarity.
That it was a strata wind-up isn't so much of a concern here. It's more about after the strata wind-up, this tenant moved in and had only been living there for a year and a half prior to application, and therefore did not qualify for the TRP.
And just to confirm, how long do they need to be living there in order to qualify?
Because it's secondary rental, they would have needed to be there for 2 years.
Okay. The caller also said that they'd like to contact staff, I guess, to just discuss this a little bit more. Is there a particular email that they should be using?
The caller can certainly reach out to me. My email, chi.chan@vancouver.ca, is on this application's website.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Meisner. Councillor Carr, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of questions that came up from the speakers regarding cyclists and signage around cyclists, especially leading down Pacific and the Burrard Bridge. What is there in terms of plans around that, especially during, I think, construction, but maybe all the time is a problem.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, we don't have engineering staff with us here today. I can speak about what this application is proposing in its immediate vicinity, but not lower down towards Pacific or Burrard Street. I don't have those answers.
Okay. So, all right, then at least in the vicinity of this, there's a lot of cyclists in the West End. So what plans are in the works for increasing the safety of cyclists, in general in this area?
So this application is required because it's at the intersection of Burnaby and Thurlow Street. It will be providing pedestrian and cyclist actuated signals for that intersection. That improves the road safety for all users, in fact, because then cars will have to also obey that. There are lane improvements that are going to be part of this as well. Speed humps, lane widening to the city standard, lighting, street lighting, lane lighting. Those are all measures that would improve the safety for all users around this application.
Okay. The question was also raised by speakers around the construction phase and impacts, I think, on quality of life, really, in the area. There's been a lot of construction around Thurlow, and so I'm wondering if the hours of, maybe you want to state the hours of construction, are they limited? And also, the shutting down of parts of roads, a lane at a time, potentially. I mean, is all of this stuff, will there be notice given to the neighbors around the impacts during construction and the solutions or mitigations?
Thank you for the question. First, I do want to acknowledge there are a lot of projects in this area. The plan permits it, and developers are moving forward with the delivery of a lot of rental housing in this area, but that means a lot of towers. With respect to construction impacts, that kind of goes along with it. It's not a great answer. We do have a noise control bylaw that does permit generally construction to happen between Monday to Saturday, 7:30 to 8 p.m., nothing on Sundays. Before they even mobilize for construction, developer has to work with our engineering teams. They have to propose traffic management plans, construction management plans. And in terms of shutdowns or like closures, like access we will always attempt to maintain access to all properties, but for limited amounts of time, access could be shut off for various construction reasons. But that doesn't happen without notice to residents prior to. One thing to note is that construction street use and sidewalk use, developers have to pay for that when they pay for the permit. So there's a financial incentive that they don't drag it out for too long.
Okay, that's all good information. Thank you.
Okay. Council will now make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Fry. Sorry, Councillor Joe, beat you to it.
It's okay.
Is there any debate? Seeing none, let's go to a voting panel.
Clerk, is Councillor Joe here? I need a vote assisting in favor, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're just waiting for mine here. My screen is... Can you give me a vote assistant in favor? Thank you. And that passes with no one in opposition. Okay, we'll move on to our third and final item. This is CD1 rezoning, 1960 West 7th Avenue. And before we begin this agenda item, if everyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now's the time to declare it. So if, does anyone have a conflict to disclose? Councillor Carr?
Yes, Chair, I don't have a conflict to disclose, but I wanted to disclose the fact that I did receive some information from a member of the public that did not copy all of council. And as per, I think, the regulations around public hearings, I have circulated it to mayor and all of council so that everybody is privy to the same information that I received.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carr. And I did receive that and read it just a few minutes ago. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
There's an application by Garcoop Properties Limited Partner to rezone 1960 West 7th Avenue from residential district to comprehensive development district to permit the development of a 20-story residential building containing 183 rental units and at least 20% of the residential floor area for below market rental units. A floor space ratio of 6.5 and a height of 61 meter with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. General Manager of Planning, Urban Design and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referred to public hearing: 11 pieces in support, 20 pieces in opposition, and 4 pieces dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Okay, thank you. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 106-1445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. This item does have registered speakers, so we will proceed with a staff presentation. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application for us.
Good evening, Acting Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Sarah Cranston, rezoning planner for this application being considered under the Broadway Plan. The site is shown in red and located on the south side of 7th Avenue between Cypress and Maple Streets in Kitsilano. The surrounding context consists of primarily low-density residential uses. The neighborhood is undergoing significant change with the future Arbutus SkyTrain station 2 blocks southwest of the subject site. The site currently consists of a 3-story rental building with 35 units. There are tenants on the site eligible for protections under the tenant relocation and protection policy. The area is well served with public transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community facilities. The site is within a transit-oriented area, being 200 to 400 meters from the future Arbutus SkyTrain station. The provincial TOA legislation contemplates up to 12 stories and 4 FSR for the Tier 2 ring. As the Broadway plan allows for more height and density for this site, the application is being assessed under the Broadway plan policies. The Broadway plan is the rezoning enabling policy for this application and is a 30-year plan which focuses on opportunities to integrate new housing, jobs, and amenities around the Broadway subway. The site is located in the Kitsilano North Area A sub-area. This sub-area allows considerations of rezonings for 100% rental housing, of which a minimum of 20% of the residential floor area as below market units. Up to 20 stories and 6.5 FSR can be considered. This rezoning proposal is for a 20-story rental tower. 183 rental units are proposed, including 20% of the residential floor area as below market units. An FSR of 6.5 and a height of 200 feet are proposed. The average starting rents are shown on this table, as well as the average annual household incomes that they serve. Based on recent data, starting rents for the below market units would range from approximately $1,200 for a studio unit to $2,400 for a 3-bedroom unit. In comparison, average starting rents for the market units range from $1,900 to $4,400. A virtual Q&A period was held March of this year, and 135 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the rental and below market rental tenures, proximity to transit, as well as for height, density, and massing. Concerns were related to the height and density, massing and design, shadowing, neighborhood fit, affordability and tenant displacement, as well as parking, traffic, and safety. In response to public feedback regarding height, density, and massing, as well as design, staff note that the proposal is compliant with the Broadway plan. Conditions have been included to improve the architectural concept. Regarding affordability and tenant displacement, eligible tenants will be offered first right of refusal in the new building at their current rent or at a 20% discount to citywide average rents, whichever is cheaper. The below market rental units will be secured at a 20% reduction to CMHC citywide average rents for the life of the building. Eligible tenants are offered protection and compensation under the tenant relocation and protection policy. Regarding neighborhood foot, the proposal is consistent with the plan to create new rental housing in residential areas close to transit. Neighborhood amenities are supported by the plan's public benefit strategy. Regarding shadowing, the proposal complies with the solar access policies of the plan and does not shadow parks or public schoolyards between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. from the spring to fall equinoxes. Regarding parking, traffic, and safety, the proposal will be required to comply with the parking bylaw and submit a TDM plan at the time of the development permit. Transportation conditions have been included to improve traffic and safety in the area. And the site is well served with transportation options, and staff expect to see an overall reduction in vehicle trips with the completion of the new Broadway subway line. The public benefits accruing from this application are the rental and below market rental units. The DCL and public art contribution are estimated to be approximately
Sorry to interrupt there. We've just lost quorum here, so we need Okay, we're back.
We're okay? Okay. So the DCL and the public art contribution is estimated to be approximately $1.9 million. The site was not subject to a CAC review as the below market rental units offset any land lift. No CAC is required. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan and advances the city's rental housing targets by delivering 183 rental units, including 20% below market units. Staff recommend approval of this application, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B. The staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance?
Good evening, Chair and Council. I'm Adrian Rabar here on behalf of the applicant, Grey Corp Properties. I'd like to thank staff for their hard work on the application throughout the process, Sarah, and Kevin early on in the project, very helpful. I'd also like to thank Mayor and Council for the approval of our other application earlier today at 2175 West 7th. In short, we recognize that change is difficult for the community, but I wanted to highlight a couple of elements of this proposal for context. Our proposal obviously adds a much needed net new 148 rental units. 64 of those are family-sized units. That compares to only 3 units, family-sized units in the existing building. Again, the building will be fully electric, nearly net zero, and all units will be air conditioned to reinforce our climate goals. We've also heard the anxiety and concerns around increased traffic and are glad to be able to take advantage of this property's location in relation to the Arbutus Greenway and future Arbutus Station terminus by keeping the number of resident stalls at 47. That works out to approximately 0.25 per unit, which is comparable to lower density forms of multifamily developments, namely townhouses. We understand that it may not be ideal to have to relocate tenants out of existing rental stock, but the reality is that many of these buildings are in poor repair. When we purchased the building, there was significant water leakage due to broken fixtures, broken pipes, as well as several code issues that had gone unfixed, unaddressed, and in particular in common areas. We've taken it upon ourselves to fix all of these issues in order to make this time of uncertainty as comfortable as possible for our residents. A testament to this is actually from the public hearing 2 weeks ago on our nearby project. One of our tenants spoke in opposition to our application, yet spent 2 minutes praising the professional and responsive relationship that Grey Corp has built with the tenants. This really brought joy to all of us the next day. The speaker also noted that this was a noticeable improvement over the past, which we're also very proud of. I'll leave it there, but thanks in advance for your consideration, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council, the staff, or the applicant team, noting that this is the only chance council has to ask questions of the applicant? Seeing none, I'll just make a second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445 pound before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we'll now hear from the public. Our first speaker is speaker number 1, Christy Long. Are you on the phone?
Speaker 1 is not on the line.
Okay, we'll go on to speaker number 2, Stephen Bohas.
Thank you. And I do have slides and also handouts.
The clerk will come grab those handouts from you and distribute them to council.
Yeah, they're like that.
Okay, Stephen, you have up to 5 minutes. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is Stephen Bose. I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I'm opposed to this rezoning. I work in Fairview, actually very close to the site, just 2 or 3 minutes away by bike. I bike on West 7th all the time, and I'm actually concerned about the rezoning impact on the dedicated bike route. This rezoning application does not follow the Broadway plan. If you look at this rendering that I made, you could see how this fits into the block, and there is no laneway. Next slide. If you look at the site plan from the applicant's booklet, you're going to see this like line for a future laneway dedication here going through all the site. And there's also a 30-foot setback to the back of the property line. And generally speaking, you need an 80-foot tower separation. So this would be split between 2 properties with a 40-foot setback to the middle of the future laneway, or in this case, the property line. And the other 40-foot would be on the other side of the laneway, and that's being taken away. So it's unfair in that sense. So anyone wanting to develop on the other side of the block on 8th would need a 50-foot setback. Next slide. So what does the Broadway plan actually have to say here? Well, the Broadway plan says that there is a site requirement of a rear laneway required. It says rear laneway required. It doesn't say future laneway designation and so on. It also says that there's a minimum frontage of 150 feet, and this site is not 150 feet. Now, you can get relaxation up to 99 feet. However, you have to follow the rest of the Broadway plan and meet its urban design objectives, which this clearly fails. The other issue here is that the future laneway cannot happen. It's impossible because you have a strata on either side of the lot. You have stratas on the a side of 8th. You're not going to be able to assemble those stratas. I've spoken to owners on one of these stratas, and they have no intention to sell. So this is a fiction and a pipe dream. And there is no laneway. There won't be a laneway. Next slide. So in terms of what could be built, let's say under the Broadway plan, amendments and a build out, well, there are 2 other sites on the other side of the block which have rental. Most of the other properties are strata. And I'm going to mention that this is really putting a target on the rental buildings. This is the affordable rental in the neighborhood, built at a human scale and fitting in with the neighborhood. You're actually looking at this rendering. I built the model because the shadow diagrams presented by staff to the public during the consultation were incorrect. So to get correct shadow diagrams, you've got to build your own model and do it yourself. And staff never corrected their incorrect shadow diagrams during the Q&A phase. So I really have concerns about incorrect information going to the public and being used in a public Q&A. Now, the note that I want to make is that this is not a like-for-like replacement of units for tenants. So if a renter is living by themselves in a 1-bedroom unit and has a parking space, they're going to be told, for example, that they can only move back into a small bachelor and lose their parking space. It's not a one-to-one like-for-like replacement. And I've spoken to tenants in other buildings facing this predicament, being rezoned. There's a lot of stress and uncertainty. And to be blunt, that the Broadway plan was a huge mistake. And you really need to pause the plan. Otherwise, you're going to see hundreds, if not thousands, of renters displaced. Next slide. This is the Alma Blackwell building, and this is kind of the future you're looking at for a lot of the affordable rentals in the Broadway plan. This is in Grandview Woodland, and there's a lot of waste, huge economic costs for tearing down good rentals and ecological costs. And I think you're maybe going to even weaken the renter protections in a couple of weeks if you see the Broadway plan amendments come back. So I'm going to urge you to reject this rezoning. It's not a podium as well, and it doesn't respect the Broadway plan. So thank you for your time.
Stephen, we're out of time. Thank you. Our next speaker, number 3, Louis Villegas.
Yes, I have slides if we could project those. My name is Louis Villegas. I'm a Vancouver resident. I'm opposed to this proposal. Next slide, please. I've worked as an architect, planner, urban designer, and building technologist in both the US and Canada. Next slide, please. I would like to see council pause the plan, keep the towers out of the neighborhoods, and return home ownership to Vancouver residents instead of sticking them in rentals. Next slide, please. The problems with these towers that we're talking about in the Broadway corridor plan are all more or less the same. Here's 4 of them. One is this shrinking unit size. The market now creates units that are 20 to 30% smaller. So when we hear from the proponents that they have all these family units in the building, I'm thinking it's for families that are 30% smaller. Parking is disappearing. We used to have 62 spots in this site. It's now down to 47. And the proponent himself said that this was townhouse parking for a tower. The character of the neighborhood, of course, is being destroyed. It makes absolutely no sense in anybody's world to build towers next to houses. Towers belong in districts and downtown. The neighborhoods should build out in human scale. Next slide, please. As it comes to the affordability or the housing crisis, we know that economists are in consensus that the cost of housing is increased by the land cost. And what raises the land cost is when we put a tower on a house lot. And so you get 15% more density. That brings up the cost of the land up because now the owner of the land can make 15 times, maybe more profit out of the same parcel. And this has been going on for years in Vancouver so that we can really say that no matter what council, any vote for a tower was a vote to increase the housing crisis, to raise the cost of land even higher. And it's going on tonight, and it's going to keep going until we pause the Broadway plan. Next slide, please. If we keep doing this kind of thing, giving away density, we're going to create an unlivable and unaffordable Vancouver. Next slide, please. Now, there's an interesting thing about the site that around it and on the site itself, the blocks don't have a rear lane. Next slide, please. And the question is why? And one of the things that comes up is this blue line, which is showing the trajectory of the BC Electric right-of-way. Next slide, please. That used to connect Vancouver with Chilliwack. Can we try the next? Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's some slides missing. All right. Vancouver with Chilliwack. The purple line that's now joining to the blue line is the Falls Creek streetcar, which can go from Granville Island all the way to Chinatown, to Science World, to Gastown, and then end in Waterfront Station. Next slide, please. And finally, the red line shows the UBC streetcar. With the same technology that we saw demonstrated at the Olympics in 2010, or that opened in Kitchener 3 years ago, or that opened in Edmonton last year, we can run LRT and we can run streetcar for 12 times less cost than the Broadway tunnel. which means that these things can go 12 times further than the Broadway tunnel. And look at the black square, which represents the site, and look at how much value we've added to that site by having a streetcar approach to transportation, LRT streetcar, rather than SkyTrain. And of course, this is also a huge bonus for the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And next slide. Okay, keep going. There we go, last slide. So the idea of pausing the plan is to build human scale neighborhoods, not towers, and to build GAP, which is what CMHC calls guaranteed affordable housing in perpetuity, forever. And the way that's done is instead of putting a contract on title to regulate the cost of rental, a contract is put on title to limit the cost of resale to the price of purchase plus inflation. And that guarantees that piece of land forever to be affordable. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Our next speaker is Cheryl Webster. Cheryl, are you on the phone?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. I oppose the, do you hear an echo? I'm hearing an echo of myself. No. I would like to bring to your attention the shortcomings of the proposal for the site. I oppose the proposal for 1960 West 7th. The site drawings online had shadows that went to the south, not the north, and the on-site info board drawings did not include the greenway and instead showed city lots on the area map. This felt like this was misinformation on the proposal site drawings for the public to view. This proposed tower will have shadows that in fact do go north and shade the greenway and community gardens. I know it is stated that the buildings will not shade the greenway from greenway and community gardens from equinox till equinox, March 21st till September 21st. This all sounds good and for the plants and community gardens, which make this stretch of greenway so unique and much loved. But if you pause and think about it, this does not really work for people. It ignores the community aspect, the social aspect, and the human aspect. People seek shade in the summer and seek sun in the winter. This city is starved for light. We need to protect our sun access at all times of the year, especially in the winter and especially in public spaces. People flock to the greenway for light and sun and community interaction. The prized Arbutus Greenway has only 3 blocks that are north of Broadway, and thus the Broadway plan. This is technically 9 blocks of the rezoned 500 blocks of the Broadway plan. Broadway to 8th, 8th to 7th, and 7th to 6th, where the Greenway is located. These 9 blocks call for the typical 2 20-story buildings per block as part of the rezoning. These towers in these 9 blocks will shade the Greenway, the community gardens, and not to mention the new City of Vancouver Park at the end of the Greenway on 1st Street. It would make so much more sense if this unique area was rethought. Perhaps these 9 blocks should not each have 2 20 stories per buildings per block, but the entire block be 8 to 10 stories high, or graduated in height away from the Greenway. It does not seem to be good urban planning to plan in large brushstrokes to make the corridor similar from Clark all the way to Vine. I ask that you oppose this building and rethink this section of the Broadway plan. Please do the next level of planning at a finer grain in this neighborhood to protect community assets before our neighborhood treasures are lost forever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is speaker number 5, Ben Angus. Ben, are you on the phone? Hello, Ben. We lost Ben. Clerk.
The speaker has withdrawn.
Okay, we'll go to speaker number 6, Rufan Wang. Go ahead, you have up to 5 minutes.
Mayor, and good evening, Council. My name is Rofan Wang. I am a planner by training, but I'm purely representing my own opinions tonight. I live on the 1900 block of 6th Avenue, 1 block north, and the shadow studies in the staff report suggest that this tower will directly shadow my window for several hours during the spring and the fall. Please do. Let me explain. Apologies for the gendered language, but they say a man's home is his castle. Well, the moat of my castle, if you will, is defined by the boundary of my strata lot. Within it, my house, my rules. But outside of it, what right do I have to demand that you reject homes on someone else's property? My property rights end at the lot line. They do not entitle me to impose my views and my subjective aesthetic preferences on my neighbors. To me, it's simply unconscionable that we would consider prioritizing the shadows on a small number of folks, including myself, over hundreds of units for potential neighbors in such a fun, vibrant neighborhood with amazing transit and cycling options. We're in the midst of a housing crisis, not a shadow crisis. I'd also like to point out that there's another form of shadowing in kits, one that is year-round and casts many windows in permanent darkness, yet nobody has ever complained. We call them trees. I have a gorgeous mature tree outside my living room window, but it covers so much light that I can barely have a Zoom call without having to turn all my lights on my floor. But I would never ask for anyone to get rid of it, and everyone I know deeply cherishes Kit's tree canopy. Ultimately, objections to shadows that are applied to new housing and new housing only are not about shadows at all. They are mere pretext for subjective aesthetic objections to the building. Second, I'd like to address height and massing issues. In an ideal world, I would agree with many of the opponents of this project that the ideal form of development in Vancouver is mid-rises, smaller scale buildings, townhomes. Personally, towers are not my favorite place to live, if for no reason other than I hate waiting for elevators. But ultimately, we don't live in that ideal world. We live in a world where, since the grave mistake of the 1970s downzoning Kitsilano, we have built a minuscule number of housing units that has not nearly kept pace with the growth of the city, the region, and UBC. The city's vacancy rate speaks for itself. We're really deep in this hole, and it's ultimately going to take height and density to claw our way out. I'd also like to relay an anecdote from Paris. In 1973, they built a 60-story tower on the city's south side, the Tour Montparnasse. You know what happened? The neighbors hated it so much that they banned all towers from the entire city of Paris in response. Admittedly, the Tour Montparnasse is not the prettiest building in the world, but you know what really makes it ugly? The fact that it sticks out like a sore thumb by virtue of being the only skyscraper that has ever been allowed to be built in Paris. The solution to solving the so-called out-of-character nature of this tower is to continue building high-quality, transit-oriented rental housing around Arbutus Station, not by giving up now and leaving a Tour Montparnasse of our own at 7th and Arbutus next door. Third, I want to address the parking concerns. Several opponents claim that this building should be rejected because it doesn't have enough parking. First, I'd argue council has no authority to consider this objection. This lot is inside the Bill 47 TOA area for Arbutus Station, where there is no expectation of parking provision, and council cannot and should not reject it on this ground. But more fundamentally, I'd like to point out that this is more a failure of imagination than any defect with the project. We're talking about a building that is a 2-minute walk to a new station on the most frequent train system in North America, in a neighborhood where even today, without this rapid transit, 53% of people already bike, walk, and transit to work, a number that's only going to get higher. While it's true that some people need their cars and can't live without them, many don't, and this would be a great housing opportunity for them. We shouldn't deny some people this housing option just because it doesn't meet the needs of all people. The issue that will readily concern is very real is the impact on the tenants of the existing building. But this council has, to your great credit, approved the enhanced tenant relocation and protection policy, which is one of the strongest in Canada and was very ambitious, and I'm very glad that it's there. I urge you to stand by your work. This is such an important policy for preventing tenant displacement, and I hope you see it through. By all means, make sure the staff enforce it well and hound the developers if they don't comply, but I urge you not to give up at the starting line. Kits is a diverse, growing, vibrant neighborhood with countless students, young people, and new families that need places to live. Our neighborhood is more than a few ossified residents associations who want to entomb 50-year-old development patterns in amber for the sake of their own aesthetic preferences. Please approve this building and many more like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rufan, and on exact time as usual. We'll circle back to speaker number 1, Christy Long. Do we have Christy on the phone?
Speaker 1 is not on the line.
Okay, so I'm going to make our third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 106-1445#. Before the close of the speakers list, the phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium. Seeing none, we'll take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. You want to speak to this item? Yep, come on down. Sorry, we are taking a 5-minute recess, so as soon as that 5-minute recess is up, you'll get an opportunity. All right, our next speaker, Karen Weiger. Go ahead, you have up to 5 minutes.
I didn't come here tonight to speak. I came here to listen. But what I've heard is a bunch of construction speak, a lot of acronyms, a lot of jibber jabber. Nothing has been really said in plain English. Yes, okay, it's a plain English for you guys, but maybe not for those of us that live next door to where you're proposing this. I will live in the shadows 100% of the time if this building goes up. 100%. I live right next door. You guys talk about the Arbutus line. That terminus goes nowhere. You all know that. We're spending $1 billion plus for a line that goes nowhere. It does not go out to UBC. It will take many, many years and many billions of dollars to make it go to UBC. And the houses out there, way more. So yes, I like the guy's ideal of us, above land like Calgary and Edmonton. But let's be a little more realistic here. Right now, it goes nowhere. There's not even connecting buses. The connecting buses, so now you got to get back on a bus to get out to UBC. Does not go downtown from that terminus. And it definitely doesn't go south. There is nothing on Arbutus except the number 16 bus, and it doesn't go very far. You guys talk about that. There's lots of amenities. Sure, they're there now, but they're at capacity, and you all know that. Every community center, every school, every childcare place is saying, we are at capacity. You've rebuilt. Education's not our thing. That's someone else's problem. That's the provincial's problem. That's this. There's only one pot of money. It's all coming from our pockets. Yes, I know you pay taxes too. But in general, there's one giant pot of money, and we have to share it. You've just built Kits High. Does it have more capacity? I don't think so. You've just built a few more elementary schools in the area. But do they have that kind of capacity? You have the 352-story towers going up at the south end of the Burrard Street Bridge. Once, and I've heard it's anywhere from 3,000 to 6,000. Where are you going to put those people? And I'm not this, the tower going up next to me is not the only one. I get it. I get it that I'm a small fish in this big sea here. But I want a voice. I want you guys to pay attention. In some of these buildings that you're tearing down in Kitsilano, these rental buildings, people have been living in them for 40 years. They're seniors. And you're asking them to relocate. You have lots of city housing too. I've heard I was at a meeting for one of these Kitsilano House. There was there was a councillor from a previous council on there. And he told me, it's not a case of the city doesn't have enough beds or houses or housing. It's the fact that you guys aren't checking back. He said there's a senior living in a 4-bedroom place. What does a senior, one person, need with 4 bedrooms? Why isn't that given to the mom with 3 kids and her mother that she's trying to help support? Are you guys checking? Are you back checking? Maybe you do have enough places already for all these people. People are talking about they want rental, and yet you hear the government saying, it's your dream to buy. Let's make sure it's affordable for everybody. Nobody defines affordable. Not one of you has defined affordable. I look at those numbers up there, I can barely afford, I own in Kitsilano. And if you look at those numbers, I don't even qualify to rent a studio apartment. So let's get a grip on what's really going on here. And everyone goes, oh, it's so nice that they're doing this, 20% or this or that. That's still a lot of money. I realize that they're developers, they're in it for the money. But I moved to Kitsilano. I moved there because it was a neighborhood. I moved there because it was where I wanted to be. I didn't move downtown. I didn't move to Yaletown. I want it to be in kits. And you guys are going to destroy it if you keep it up.
Thank you, Karen. We're at time. Thank you for your comments. Clerk, do we have any other callers? Scott Woodworth, are you on the line?
Hi.
Hi, Scott. If you could just let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, resident of Vancouver. I'll be quick here. I obviously don't support the towers. I just wanted to reference a couple comments made earlier. There was a comment made about shadowing from buildings being similar to shadows from trees. That's probably the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life. Should we fill Stanley Park with towers so that we can all go hang out under the towers? Or maybe we should all picnic with our families under the beauty of the shade of a bunch of ugly, monotone towers. I mean, that comment is ridiculous. The comment in reference to Paris, let's not repeat Paris. Isn't Paris a city that everybody in the world reveres as one of the most beautiful places? I'm wondering how we're trying to say let's not make the same mistake as that by using that as an excuse to put up a bunch of towers that all look the same and could basically be recreated with Lego. Anyways, I needed to comment on that. That speaker's comments were completely insane, in my opinion, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Clerk, anybody else?
There are no other callers on the line.
Okay, seeing that there's no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And also seeing that there's little or no public comments received after 5 p.m. today, I'm also closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments?
No further comments. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does staff have any further closing comments?
No further comment.
And does council have any questions for staff? Councillor Carr, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Steph, I'm interested in following up on one of the points made by a speaker regarding laneway, the laneway behind, and the comment was made that this proposal does not follow with the Broadway plan requirement around laneways, and specifically the 30-foot setback is insufficient, or it doesn't meet that 30-foot setback. Anyway, I wonder if you could just outline for me or respond to the comments made by that speaker around, is this proposal meeting the needs around a future laneway?
Yes, thank you for the question. Engineering has conditioned a dedication for a rear laneway in the future, but the delivery of that lane would be dependent on all the other properties in that block developing and also helping to contribute to that lane delivery. So right now, the proposal includes access from the street, and staff were satisfied with the interim condition proposed with the street access in the absence of a lane.
Okay, all right. And the number of towers in this block, I mean, this is sort of mid-block, but what are the, again, remind me of the Broadway plan recommendation, not recommendation, but, it's in the Broadway plan, 2 towers per block, but what is, I'm looking at the proposal, and where would the second tower be, or is that not a requirement in this block?
The Broadway plan does have a limitation of 2 towers per block.
Yes.
And there was a block study submitted as part of the application that hypothetically studied where those towers could be located. And the reduced tower setbacks that are proposed to the rear and to the west, as you noted, were dependent on or based on that block study, showing that other tower sites are viable with the proposed tower setbacks.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carr. Seeing nobody else on the queue, council will make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young. Seconded by Councillor Fry. Any debate? Sorry, Councillor Carr, there you go. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I really do want to respond to a number of the speakers who talked about of how the towers and how you lose neighborhood and the feeling of neighborliness when you have towers with single-family homes. I live in the West End, and the West End has a lot of towers and a lot of older homes as well that are being protected and preserved, and some low rise and some mid rise. It's a variety of kinds of buildings. But one of the reasons that I supported the Broadway plan at the time that we did do this in the last council was because of the limit on 2 towers per block, and the fact that and the kind of tower in a park philosophy that guides the West End, which means that towers are set back. There's greenery and trees and landscaping in front of them. Lots of trees in the West End. We call it our leafy green interior of the West End. You don't really notice the towers that much when you're walking along the streets, because it's a lot of landscaping that is in front of those towers. There is no less sense of neighborliness or community. The West End is a very strong community in terms of seeing people in the grocery stores and in the restaurants and the pubs over and over, and it's very neighborly, and people walk. And people use transit. So I just want to, I guess, reassure people who are worried about this form of development that I have not experienced in any way less neighborliness in the West End than I experienced when I lived in Kitsilano or in South Granville. And I just really, I thank staff for moving forward with a plan that actually I think will sustain neighborliness, sustain local community and connectedness, and will move towards complete community, which means the services in the area that people can walk to easily access that will meet all their needs. So I thank all the speakers for coming out. I think the passion of our residents is really important in letting us know as council and our staff know how you feel about the development in this city. But thought I would offer my comments as someone who is experiencing a neighborhood that may be somewhat like what Broadway is going to end up being, but is really a very close-knit neighborhood.
Okay, Councillor Fry.
Yeah, and I'll also just take a moment to address some of the criticisms on this project. I will be supporting this application and recognizing that the train may not go to UBC yet, but it's not going to be a train to nowhere. It's still going to go, it'll get from Arbutus to Broadway and Commercial in about 12 minutes. It'll connect to the Canada line. The Broadway corridor is a significant employment corridor. So it's not like it's a train to nowhere and it's a nowhere spot. We are faced with the reality that there is a significant investment of transit infrastructure that's landing right there, a block and a half away. And under the terms of the provincial agreement, we're obliged to actually add the density there. It's even out of our hands at this point. There's a lot of complicated moving parts, but what we do know is that we do have, a critical housing need. I'm not really stoked on the extent of affordability that's delivering, but that's the challenge that we have when we're dealing with market developments. It's not a debate though.
Sorry, Karen. Sorry, you have to be quiet. Karen, you have to be quiet, or we're gonna have to ask you to leave. Okay, you've had your chance to speak. It's time to. You got to sit and listen, or you can leave. It's up to you. Okay. Everyone's had an opportunity. We've given you. We've given you your opportunity. Karen, you've had your opportunity. You can either stay and be quiet, or you'll be asked to leave. Okay. Thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Fry. Continue.
Well, and just to reflect, I get the anxiety and stress around it. These are big, significant changes. The Broadway plan is a significant change for our city. It is a long-term plan. There is a lot of built-in stuff to limit the extent to which it's going to wipe out everything that we know about community and about our city. And it is a gradual build-out. It's happening very quickly right now, but this still takes time to build. So on the whole, this project is a pretty decent project, and we see a lot of projects coming through, and this one's all right. And I get that it's.
Okay, so Karen, I'm going to have to ask you to leave, okay? We can't have you disrupting the chambers anymore, so I'm going to just pause your timer there, Councillor Fry and Karen. We're going to recess until you leave, so. Okay, why don't we recess and we'll come back in a minute. Okay, let's continue. Councillor's still online. We'll get you to come back real quick here. Okay, we've got quorum again. Councillor Fry, go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, and I do want to say to the architect and the proponents, it is a decent project. I appreciate you bringing it forward. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Seeing no one else in the queue, we will go. Or sorry, I've lost my place. Great. Okay, can you take us to a vote, Clerk?
Chair is Councillor Lanny Joe, so I need a vote assist in favor, please.
Okay, Councillor Joe, we'll get you that. And Clerk,
Did we have a mover already or not?
Did we have a mover and a seconder? Oh, okay. Thank you. Councillor Joe needed a vote assist in favor.
Yes, please.
We're just waiting to record that vote, Councillor.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
There we go. Okay, that passes with no one in opposition. Motion to adjourn, second. Anybody? Councillor Fry, seconded. This meeting's adjourned. Or sorry.
Thank you, everyone.
All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.